Maeve is playing chess with her friend Daniel today. A few months ago, she was a full-time student at Columbia College Chicago studying film, but that didn't work out.
I had been really excited about making new friends and being in a happy friendship relationship with my roommates, and that just kind of fell through the floor. I was constantly ignored.
After dropping out, Maeve went home, suffering from severe depression, and that's when her parents kicked her out.
And so I packed my bags and I chose to leave.
How did that make you feel?
A whole bunch of emotions. Primarily hurt that my life had become an ultimatum, and that it was that much of that they saw me as so much of a burden that they were just gonna throw me away.
Kicked out because she wasn't transitioning into the right trans woman.
The way they'd heard about on TV. Immediately get hormones, start working for surgeries.
A study from the University of Chicago says LGBTQ+ youth are twice as likely to experience homelessness as their peers. Maeve now stays at the Crib, one of the nation's first homeless shelters dedicated to LGBTQ+ youth.
It's a free place to stay. I'm not in a place to argue.
The Crib and Youth Center on Hallstad provide Maeve breakfast and dinner. She doesn't usually get lunch. The staff also host weekly programs on gender and identity and hosted a queer prom this month.
The biggest lesson that I've learned being here is that there's still people. And I don't think people understand that.
Experts say it's not just money or behavior that leaves so many LGBTQ+ youth homeless.
They get put out for being who they are. And that is not an excuse.
Marco Lucio Chavez works with the youth outreach team for the Crib that Maeve stays at.
They get put out because they just choose to love somebody that society says they shouldn't. And I think that is one of single-handedly the most heartbreaking things.
I traveled with Marco Lucio Chavez to different parts of Chicago to talk to people about what the night ministry does and how it can help people that they know struggling with homelessness.
It's literally walking in the street and hey, my name is Marco, this is what we do.
For Maeve, it's still an uphill battle, sometimes fighting bigotry at the shelter.
I don't want to sleep next to them, and I don't want to have to speak to them or see them. I don't want them to hit on me.
Maeve hopes to someday be in her own home. Right now, she's applying for jobs, trying to take herself in a different direction from where she started at Columbia, but still express herself through art.
Try to make sure when I'm writing, it's for me, not for somebody else. And if someone else enjoys it, that's good. And I hope I can survive on that at some point.
In Boys Town, Alexa Mikhail, Northwestern News Network.
Thank you all for doing that you're doing.
Democrat Marie Newman is running for Congress again.
Marie for Congress!
I think that people are really tired of the toxicity of Dan's campaign, how he legislates, his lack of effectiveness in the district.
She's challenging incumbent Democrat Dan Lipinski over a divisive issue.
He does not support Roe v. Wade. He's actively working against Roe v. Wade. So at the end of the day, I trust women and support women, and that's very clear, the difference between you.
I thought so. Very nice to see you.
Lipinski does not support abortion and has voted against bills providing federal funds for the procedure, something many Democrats feel is a deal breaker.
Dan Lipinski isn't voting for the bills that the Democratic Party wants passed, and it's important that we not just keep the same people in power that have always been in power. We have to make sure that the party is responsible to their base.
Newman won endorsements from pro-choice 2020 presidential candidate Kirsten Gillibrand and is backed by Planned Parenthood. On the other side, Lipinski says Newman is disconnected from the real issues like jobs, infrastructure, and healthcare, saying, quote, "These endorsements make clear that Marie Newman is again running a, quote, Tea Party of the Left campaign at the behest of national interest groups, rather than focusing on taking care of the everyday concerns of people in the district, as I have a track record of doing." But a New York Times article recently questioned whether there is room in the Democratic Party at all for lawmakers who oppose abortion. Just last week, the chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee pulled out of a fundraiser for Lipinski, a sign the party might be headed in a different direction.
There is definitely a new branch in Democrats who are more progressive-minded. They got the grassroots mentality, and the thing with the grassroots mentality is that you need the people to support you.
In Illinois' 3rd Congressional District, Alexa Mikhail, Northwestern News Network. Bright pink, fluorescent purple, rusty maroon. Cuba is known for its vibrant colors, especially when it comes to cars.
These cars are like museums on wheels. They don't exist anywhere else except Cuba and the United States.
Museums, because these cars were first brought to Cuba in the 1950s. The island is only 330 miles from the coast of Miami, but in many ways, it's stuck in time, trapped in the 50s. In 1958, the U.S. imposed an embargo, or what Cubans call a blockade. That made it impossible for Cuba to receive imports from the U.S. following the Castro regime. Despite this, taxi drivers have profited from these old cars.
Cars are going to continue to thrive because tourists coming out of cruise ships want to ride. They come for the colors. We choose the colors on the preference of the tourists. Tourists call pink cars the Barbie cars.
But it's also because professional work is hard to find in Cuba. Armando Martinez Santo has been driving for 8 years. He says he continues because he must provide a life for his family.
I have a 6-month-old baby, so I need to work hard even with the beating sun. But I always reap the benefits.
Jose Gonzalez has a passion for mechanics. He could not get a job in engineering, though, so he decided to stay with cars.
But I decided to work with taxis because when you finish a degree here, although you are a professional, sometimes you don't find a good job.
Jose says that most Cuban taxi drivers maintain their own cars. He even has a shop in his house for his car. The cars have to keep running.
So what's unique about the Cuban cars is that you're getting all the parts from different types of cars, even modern and still ones from the 1950s. So it's made up of parts that come from today and parts that were all the way from the 1950s combined to still be driving on the roads today.
Still, taxi drivers face many government regulations.
We would like the blockade on Cubans to be lifted because if we didn't have so many restrictions, we would work more. They charge us a high price for the taxis agency. We have to pay between 600 and 700 CUCs for each month that we work a car. That price includes some of the gasoline that they give us, but it is a bit expensive for us.
Giving tourists a ride of a lifetime, while trying to overcome the speed bumps of the Cuban regime. Alexa Mikhail, Havana, Cuba.